Okay. Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Shackle?
Here.
Ms. Christie? Here. Mr. Landuse?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. D?
Here.
Mr. Zupnik?
Here.
Mr. Travaglini?
Here.
Ms. Patras? Here. And Ms. Gutschall.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers and posted in the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 12, 2018.
Today is Flag Day, so let's salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will open it up to the public. If anyone has anything they'd like to talk about that is not on the agenda. Seeing no one, we'll close that portion. And I will open it up to the board members. Anybody on the board have anything that they would like to talk about? Larry, you don't want to talk about that farmer's market?
So, I will say, I did see some of you at the farmer's market this last Saturday, which will be, once again, this Saturday, 9 to 1 at River Road Park, with 2 new vendors coming. We've been getting a great crowd. The vendors are thrilled with the folks that have been showing up, and it's been going well. And once again, it's promoting local agriculture. So showing up and buying from our local vendors is furthering a lot of our master plan goals that you guys have all been working so hard on. So there's a most definite tie-in between the farmers market and the land use board. And kudos to our police department for catching a bank robber from this robbery of the P-PAC Gladstone Bank in Pottersville, which would be just a few hundred yards down from tonight's application.
When was this?
Yesterday.
Lou, that was yesterday.
Trina just told me. I was at work.
And if you see the police blotter or the Facebook page for the Bedminster Police Department, you'll see some of the details on it.
We'll play the BPD.
There you go.
Okay, anybody else on the board?
I had a thought.
Yeah.
I know we don't necessarily formally have an economic development group, but you're like the de facto economic development person there. So I was wondering if some of the comments that we got from the Malacrop guy last meeting, whether we would collect or otherwise solicit or otherwise publish someplace, somewhat of and maybe Steve gets letters from time to time, but people who have a good experience dealing with the township on whatever level and are glad they're here, should we create some kind of testimonial thing to use in our own self-promotion?
I think that's a great idea, and certainly look, there's other businesses that are looking at space in Bedminster, and as an office leasing guy, you know how important it is to promote to the companies that are looking at space that they're going to find a town that can work with them and is ready to accommodate needs as appropriate. I think that's something we could discuss, and Frank, I'm not sure if and we can put that into an element of the master plan. To some degree, it's not directly addressing Rich's question about some promotion. But Rich, maybe that's something we can talk with Trina and Judy about on the township website.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, even if it's something we do on a website someplace that, I mean, listen, no one, as long as people have had a favorable experience and they're willing to share it, that's great stuff. But I just know from my own experience being on this board 20 years ago, the tenor of our approach to applications is that much different than it was 20 years ago when it was like, you got a better chance of meeting God, as opposed to the kind of reasonable consideration that I think people now find. So again, it's only been a short year. that's, the tenor has completely changed. And I think we communicate that to the public. There's a lot of townships across the state, and some just break your shoes for no apparent reason. And
Rich is right, that was how business was done in Bedminster 20 years ago, right?
yeah,
How's our business association going? Lou, you might, no, it's not, huh?
The BBA wilted on the vine about 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
It just didn't take, it
Didn't take-
took off, actually.
Yeah, I know, it did.
And then, as,
crashed and burned.
as kind of changed, like, presidents and things like that, it just lost its steam.
You couldn't find any new blood. There was never any turnover in leadership. It was the same 4 people doing all the heavy lifting
Yeah.
all the time.
John
And
Taylor.
they finally got to the point where they stopped doing it and nobody else would pick up the ball and run with it. And
Yeah,
that's,
I
you know,
understand.
if you can't get somebody that, you know, if it can't live past whoever's running it, then it was
I
never
understand
destined to-
completely, yep.
And it was that, the last attorney who,
Oh, that was Robbie
Robbie,
Offceaser.
right,
He was
Offceaser.
Fabulous
He did a good
president.
job.
I
and
was
so
president.
when he switched jobs and moved out of town,
It held
it
that,
collapsed.
right.
Could
And
not- I mean, he took over after I was president, and he did a fabulous job.
Right.
They had great events, they tried to get people involved, and they raised money, they did a lot of good for the local charities, they really did, but sadly.
No
it
one
did
wanted to
not
pick it
last.
up after
Uh-huh,
he left.
yeah. All right, well, we'll think about how we could enforce, implement that.
you'll talk to Judy, and then we can circle back and see how we
Sure.
can
Sure.
post that.
Okay,
Thank you, Rich.
anything else? All right, I think we're ready for our application. We have, Golub, 18003.
Good evening.
Yes,
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board, and board professionals. My name is Paul Mitchell from the law firm of Pistone Lecker and Selly, and we represent Antonio Gallo, the property owner. This variance application is regarding 16 Southfield Drive, Lot 8, Block 8, which is a 2.09 acre property located in the R2 zone, which is the low density residential zone. The applicant is seeking approval to continue to use the interior of her existing home, and a variance is needed for the net habitable floor area. The lot conforms to the R2 zone requirements, however, she cannot comply with the net habitable floor area requirement. For this lot, in this home, it is a maximum net habitable floor area of 4,212 square feet, and she's seeking to use 5,073 square feet of existing space in her home. We were involved with this application after it was already filed, and it was initially filed as a C variance, but we believe it is actually a D variance. The total unfinished space that Ms. Golub is seeking to use as a playroom is 903 square feet. There's no impact to it, simply looking to use.
wait, excuse me, if this is a G, I think we have an issue.
Stop both of us right there. Why do you say it's a D variance?
Because it's dealing with the net habitable floor area, and it's a floor area.
It's
grade.
dealing with net habitable floor area, but as I understand it, net habitable floor area is different. It's somewhat similar, it probably...
We do use floor area ratios in office and commercial zones. We don't use them in the residential zones. So we do have this standard to keep houses from getting overbuilt in these neighborhoods that limits that net habitable floor area. It does not do it in the terminology that makes it a D variance in my estimation.
Again, it advances similar goals, it has some things in common, but there's no ratio, and I think it's a C variance, which you should like, it's a lesser burden.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. I'll continue, and I'll defer to the board professionals in terms of the C variance. As I mentioned, the total unfinished space that we're seeking to use is 903 square feet. Full construction is not going to change, and we could accommodate the problem of having a floor area greater than what's permitted because the space is already there. It's just not being used at this time. The existing structure and size haven't impacted the neighbors. Now, this house did get a rear yard setback variance granted in 2010. We're here this evening because the home's under contract for sale, and the new owners wish to use the 903 feet of unfinished space. The owners do understand that if they intended to use that space as anything other than a playroom or a general use room, such as a bedroom, they'd have to get Board of Health approval, as Mr. Ferraro noted in May 7th and 31st letters. I have here with me this evening Antonio Gottlieb, the property owner, and Jay Petrillo of J. Michael Petrillo Architects. We don't intend to have Ms. Gottlieb testify this evening unless the board has questions, which time we intend to put her under oath. We believe that Mr. Gottlieb, excuse me, Mr. Petrillo will hold testimony. I understand Mr. Petrillo has been before this board multiple times, but if you would like, I can still qualify him as an architect, or do qualify in your opinion?
Board, do they have questions regarding this application?
We have recognized his credentials in the past. I don't know that this board has, but I'm certainly comfortable. If you want to, you have that right.
No one has any questions at all?
And I can qualify him if you prefer.
I'm sorry.
Would you like me to qualify him? I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, why don't you spend
Yeah,
less time if you have?
Perhaps you should.
Mr. Petrillo, what's the name of your company? What is your office address?
The name of my business is J. Michael Petrillo Architects. We are at 38 Hardscrabble Road, Baskin Ridge, New Jersey.
And what's your educational background?
I have a bachelor's of science degree and a master's of architecture degree.
And those are the degrees obviously you hold. What other boards have you appeared before?
I have appeared before numerous boards in the surrounding neighboring townships. I was last in front of this board for a case involving the Plugman Inn Annex building, wine storage building in 2013.
What licenses do you hold at this time?
I'm licensed to practice in the state of New Jersey since 1989.
And is your license in good standing?
Yes, it is.
And what's your report appearances, if any, have you made?
We're good.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Petrillo, can you describe the buildings on the property in regard to the style of the home, size, square footage, materials, colors, etc.?
Absolutely. We have submitted 3 sheets of drawings for the structure. The existing,
Are they identical to what was submitted?
correct, the drawings are dated 4/25/2018.
Go.
Okay. Basically, there's a single-family residence on this particular lot. It's a story-and-a-half structure, which my clients had purchased in 2010. At that point, we did a major renovation. Slightly after that, we did an addition to the rear, which was an enclosed pool. The architectural design of the structure is it's a colonial sort of expanded cape. It's located in the neighborhood of single-family homes, two-story, size and magnitude. This particular structure is similar in the style of the surrounding homes in the neighborhood.
And can you, just from an architectural point of view, describe the surrounding dwellings?
Yes, certainly the surrounding dwellings within the 200-foot radius of our property, again, are single-family homes, basically two-story center hall colonials, cedar clapboard siding, asphalt shingle roofs, very nicely detailed. It's a nice street, most of the landscaping is kept up very nicely.
And you mentioned that you had done some major construction renovations in 2010. Can you just give us a brief overview of what was done?
Sure, to give you a quick overview, when my clients had purchased the house originally in 2010, it was a ranch. It was a substandard size garage, so we took the garage off, put a 2010. We renovated some of the interior spaces, and we also raised the roof to be able to create some bedroom spaces up on the second floor under the roof line and some dormers. That was the initial phase in 2010.
And would you please describe what's being proposed by the applicant?
Yes, show the board the architectural, please, especially the second floor.
Sure. So just to give you a quick overview on the first floor, it was an existing sort of almost a U-shaped or an L-shaped structure. We did put it in garage, have a proper sized garage. We did add some front entry porches. There was a previous variance which was granted for rear setback, to sort of cut across this corner of the structure. And then on the second floor, when we raised the roof, we have some cathedral ceilings in the great room, cathedral ceiling in the master suite, and there is a bedroom and a bath, which was for their one son, which was in this front corner. When the roof line was constructed in 2010, there were provisions made for additional attic space that could be finished down the road. They need to expand from a three-bedroom. At that point, it was basically unfinished storage, so it didn't count towards net habitable floor area. We did put the dormers in, put the windows in. So since 2010, the house has been in this configuration that we're looking at today.
Can you explain what net habitable floor area is allowed in this zone and what it's based upon?
Yeah, the net habitable floor area, just to give you a quick idea, this was from Mr. Vanish's report. This is part of the land management ordinance. Finished spaces, basically, heated and fully enclosed, the inside surface of the walls, bedroom of at least 6.5 feet, working, living, eating, cooking, sleeping, stair, wall service, and does not include garages, does not include carports, parking spaces, cellars, half stories, unfinished attics, and basements. So it's basically all of your interior finished heated living spaces.
And you testified regarding the pool. Is the pool itself heated?
Yes, so we had the initial project, which was to renovate the house. Then the clients had asked to put a pool addition on the back of the house, which has a small hallway with a bathroom, changing area, and an indoor pool. That space is a heated space. The pool is heated, but the space is heated as well. That was basically put on for Ms. Gallo in terms of doing her physical therapy at the time. So when we had applied for the permit to put the enclosed pool on, we basically got up to the net habitable floor area of where we are now. So we did have to include the indoor pool as part of the net habitable area. So that sort of maxed us out.
So is it correct then if we pulled out the HVA system from the enclosed pool area, that it wouldn't count towards the net habitable floor area?
And I think that might be the judgment. We had a long discussion at the time, since we were heating the space, that it would count. If we didn't heat the space, in theory, it wouldn't count, but we really needed to have a year-round use for the physical therapy. So that's where we got into the technicality of the habitable area. So as it stands now, we're a couple square feet under. But we have a 3-bedroom house with 800 and some square feet of indoor pool. The client really needs some additional space up in the attic.
So then if the net habitable floor area for the enclosed pool area, Warren County's for us to have the floor area, obviously, we need batteries.
Correct. If we didn't have the heated pool room, that would we would be able to add the additional 900 some square feet of the attic.
And that 903 square feet, is that 2 rooms?
Basically, the way the roof is structured, it could be set up as 2 rooms, because you have to go through the one space to get to the space above the garage. The intent for what we're trying to do today is to see if the board will look favorably upon approving the 900 square feet of finished space. Not to have closets, not to have bedrooms, basically finished space. We're under the understanding that if for some reason the buyer that wants to put a bedroom in, then they have to go to the Board of Health to get septic review, if we need to upgrade the septic system, all those things. We're just trying to not have to put that hardship on us in terms of being able to sell the property.
So the intent at this point is not to use it as a bedroom, but for playroom slash general use room.
That's correct.
And do we meet the lot coverage requirements?
Yes, we do.
And could this lot, from an architectural review, accommodate problems associated with having a larger net habitable floor area than what's permitted?
Yes, I really feel that it could. Basically, the house that's on the property now, we had submitted some photos for you to see as well, but you didn't have a chance to drive by. That house has been in that current state since 2010. So in granting this net habitable increase, we're not adding space, we're not adding bulks or massing, the dormers are there, the windows are there, the roof lines are there. The streetscape would stay the same, none of the neighbors would be burdened by seeing construction trucks or additional roof line or additional mass. They've been living with this house since 2010.
And from an architectural point of view, would the additional net habitable floor area have any impact on the neighbors, or would it cause a substantial detriment to the public good?
I don't really see it causing a detriment at all. I mean, it's certainly a very lovely structure. Try not to design any ugly houses.
Of course, I would hope.
We did painstakingly try to do it in a way where it was underneath fine, and we added some dormers and some charms to make it feel like it's a big two-story house, and it has that big. So certainly this wouldn't be a detriment to any of the neighbors.
Okay, would this variance cause any substantial detriment to the zone plan or the zoning ordinance?
I don't think so. I think, we understand the intent of the net habitable area in terms of overdeveloping a property. I believe the intent really of the net habitable floor area is to help create a way, in addition to setbacks and coverage, but also a way to sort of set the tone for the bulk and sort of what the mass of the structure would be. And that way not putting up a big two-story or 2.5-story McMansion that overcrowds your neighbors. This house already fits within its shell of what it is, so we're not really looking to take advantage of anything in terms of saying, well, we've got extra floor space, but we put a lot of bulk on. This is already here.
And did you have the opportunity to review the May 7th and June 1st, 2018 reports from Mr. Ferraro and the June 11th report from Mr. Banish?
Yes, I did.
Would you mind reviewing those briefly for us?
Yeah, I think basically the review letters from Ferraro Engineering were with regard to some of the questions from the previous application. So just to give you a little background, the clients had submitted an application for this net habitable area in 2013. We submitted drawings, and then we just never came before the board. So a lot of these questions were review questions from Mr. Ferrara initially for that submission. So my office went through and met all the requirements. I believe that Mr. Ferrara's office is fine with what we have submitted.
Okay, Mr. Banish's report also?
Yeah, Mr. Banish.
Jay, before you start there, there's a reference in my report to something that I saw on the plans that said proposed addition. It's there, it's not a proposed addition. So the space they're asking to use is all existing space,
Right.
nothing to be built.
Right. Yeah, I think I understood that.
I had never reached out to Mr. Banish in regard to that, so we had a phone discussion about that, so I apologize for that.
I just want to ask Mark, the septic is based on bedroom space, isn't it? That's correct, right? Not square footage?
That's correct. It's based on bedrooms. And the most recent letter from our office, which I think supersedes the first letter, the main point that we made on there is that the proposed second floor finished space is shown as a playroom. And if at any point in time there's a closet added or there's a door added that separates that from the rest of the house, then it's considered a bedroom. Board of Health approval would be required, expansion of a septic system, and so forth. So I think if there's any favorable resolution, that should be clear in there.
Right.
And I do have one question about your testimony. You mentioned 3 existing bedrooms.
Yeah.
but I only see two on the plans for existing. Can you point out the third one?
The office? First floor office? Is that what we're calling a bedroom?
The first floor office, they used it literally as a home office, but in theory it has an open floor closet and a door, so that was technically the third bedroom. So master, office, and then second floor bedroom.
Board, any questions from the board? Any more questions?
Your floor area calculations are based on all of the areas of the house that have at least a 6.5-foot ceiling?
Yes.
Is that the way we come to that, Frank? Or it's the 6.5-foot ceiling, so we're, in those pitches, we're only measuring like the center of the room in some
Exactly,
cases.
where you've got headroom.
So it's 5,000 square feet, and it's just 3 bedrooms.
Because we have an indoor pool.
Yeah. Pools are supposed to be.
Okay.
On sheet
Sleep
number
6
2 or
people on
sheet
this
number
side.
3, we do have a chart that has the breakout of all the square footage.
Just for the record, Mr. Petrillo, sheet number 3 is actually a later revision date, correct?
Yeah, sheet number 3 has the revision date of 5/14. So there's a breakout of the square footage. The hallway to the pool is 225 square feet, and the pool to the filter is 871. So 871 square feet of pool to filter. That basically could net out to the additional bedrooms. So considering if we didn't have the indoor pool addition, we could fit 2 bedrooms up above the garage.
Okay.
Typical house in the township, which might be 4,000 to 4,500 square feet, 3 bathrooms, 3.5 bathrooms.
Any
We need
access?
number sheet of, marked, since it is.
I don't think, I have it,
No, I have.
so it was submitted.
Okay,
That's how I knew to ask the question.
okay.
It's taken on the top.
Oh, on the top, okay, I didn't see the addition, okay.
Mr. Petrillo, if you consider that office on the first floor a bedroom, how do you access the bathroom from that bedroom? Only through the master bedroom? Right now, correct?
I don't consider it a bedroom.
So it's not used as a bedroom, but the office?
The office.
But what's in it qualifies it under the regulations as a bedroom, is that what you're saying?
In theory, you have to have close proximity to a bathroom,
Yes.
the way the UCC works. But when we filed for these building permits, it was labeled as.
It was a
deemed as
bedroom.
A bathroom with a bathing facility, which would be the master bath.
I guess maybe they thought you could, in theory, come down to the bathroom by the bathroom.
You have two powder rooms there, too.
It's the closet and the door.
That doesn't qualify as a bedroom because the proximity wouldn't qualify as one. Okay.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for our witness? No,
On the plan,
yes.
the area that you're seeking to include is which,
Basically, this entire wing.
and the pool is over here.
Correct, the pool would be over here.
Okay, so Frank, in your letter, you talked about it's enclosing the addition leading to the pool, which,
Right, that's what I said. My first comment
it's not the
was,
addition, but it's not leading to, it's
They're not
on
building.
the other side of the pool. It's not
If-
leading to the pool.
if you look
it's
at the-
heading towards the garage.
first page of the plans, it says proposed addition, but it's
Oh,
actually
that
been
was- okay.
constructed.
And you're not seeking to finish the attic storage? Okay, so it's just over the garage and that hall?
Correct.
Okay. And that's simply the addition of,
It's
Heat and
additional
air heat.
Heat and finished walls, finished flooring, the volume is there, the space is
Okay.
there, the dormers are there. That's correct.
And there's electrical lights and everything.
There's lighting in there now for storage.
And outlets.
Right, right.
Go ahead.
President, this
Oh,
house
there it
is
is.
for sale.
I didn't see it up there.
Is there a contract for sale on this house?
I don't know if I'm the right person to speak to that.
Okay. Well,
Yes, there is.
the reason I ask is because if, I don't know that the purchaser is here, but is there intention to change this into a bedroom? Do we know anything about that?
We do not know that. I don't believe the purchaser is here, correct? No.
Is the intention to do the work before the sale?
No, not before the sale.
So just to get the approval?
That they could finish that unfinished space, and they could let room, gym room.
We would need a condition, obviously.
And that condition would go along
A
with.
condition will go with the house. Yeah. Okay. Everybody satisfied? Yes? All right. I guess we're ready for a resolution.
Well, I do have a question for,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I will.
just a question
Yes.
for Frank. Mr. Petrella identified what he thought was the scope of having net habitable floor area included in our zoning ordinance. And I certainly remember we've had discussions about that particular provision, and I think it'd be helpful if you could just tell us what the intent was at the time the ordinance was adopted.
Pretty much throughout the time that you've had zoning, your standard single-family zone has permitted 2.5 stories and 35 feet. Many of the homes that were built in town are 2.5, they're feet, 35 feet.
Height.
Height. Most of the 2.5-story buildings that were built in town are not 35 feet high. There was a wave sweeping before 2008, in that early part of the 2000s. Towns a little north of here were finding normal development townhouses or even, custom-designed homes being torn down and replaced with houses that pretty much looked as big as they could get. Their 2 stories were each 10 to 12-foot ceilings. You start putting all this together, the dormers on the 3rd floor, so that got a little out of hand. I think what Jay was saying, and it resonated with me, was look at the building and tell me if you think it doesn't fit in the neighborhood, because that would be the problem we were creating. If it looked like it didn't fit in the neighborhood because of this, and it may have a little elongated shape to it, but most of that is not stuck in our face. It goes out the backside. So to the extent that if you wanted to have extra space above and beyond what we've suggested, the kind of techniques we could recommend would be that you push it down like this. He's got basically a 1.5-story building here. He's got some nice high dormers that give it some real individuality, but at the end of the day, it's not 35 feet and 2.5 stories. And it doesn't present itself like a lot of these houses do, where it gets to be 90 feet wide by, straight up. So on that score, to the extent that one of the primary motivations was not to have houses that don't look like they belong in their neighborhood, you have to judge whether you agree with him. I tend to agree with that.
So, but coming back to, obviously we have a lot coverage. If it was an anti-McMansion intent, we have lot coverage standard. We have a floor area ratio standard. What extra were we getting with the net habitable?
We don't have a floor area ratio standard.
Oh, we don't?
No.
So, okay.
This was the residential zone.
Not for
equivalent.
residential, right.
Right.
So this is the way of bringing that in by, but
and we
treating
did
it as net habitable.
And we did it this way specifically so every homeowner that was confronted with this didn't have a use variance, which has the more strict proofs that David was referring to.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Frank.
I'm going to open it up to the public. If anyone has any questions or comments. Seeing none, we'll close that portion. Okay.
Well, if the board was of a mind to grant the application, it would be a motion to approve the application to grant the variance for net habitable floor area ratio subject in addition to the usual conditions, to a condition that none of the, I'll call it the extra space permitted by this, is to be utilized as a bedroom, that they can't put a closet or doors in, because that might trigger it being considered a bedroom, that you get whatever other approvals might be required. I'll say to the satisfaction of Mr. Ferraro's office, and you pay your fees. That's pretty much it.
Bless you.
Thank you. Okay, we need a motion to approve. Anyone?
Second.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Straka?
Aye.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Delius?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Deep?
Aye.
Mr. Zepnick?
Aye.
Mr. Travellini?
Aye.
Ms. Petrus? Aye. And Ms. Gutschall?
Aye. Motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I could have made
Well, if the board has anything else they would like to discuss, I think we could have a motion to, oh, yes, sorry, yes. Yeah, July 5th, we're canceling the meeting for that. We don't have anything that we need to approve. Please. July 5th, canceled, okay, for that. And we'll look at all as it comes in. If we don't have anything, we may have one meeting rather than two, and if we don't have any applications, we will skip August altogether.
Carol, don't we have the,
We have July
the master,
12th.
okay, we're keeping it off.
We are going
All
to
right.
keep July 12th. We're going to have a discussion from Frank regarding the re-examination. And I'm also asked Paul if he would like to discuss about the requirements for the New Jersey DEP that we were asked to review. And so if there's any questions, anybody has anything about it, Paul, be prepared.
Stormwater?
The stormwater management, right, exactly. Okay, if you'd pass that along to Paul so that he's prepared as well. It is required for you to read it by July 1st, but we'll have any questions, whatever we need, July 12th. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion
Motion to
to adjourn, and we're all finished. Thank you.
Wait, so do we have to read by July 3rd?
You get a better idea on the positive.
Nick, you read it